Chrome body, bakelite grip. A motor still humming after 70 years. The Sunbeam Mixmaster was built by Chicago engineers who expected their work to last, and it did. But the company went bankrupt. The kitchens it was made for vanished. The rituals it anchored faded. How does a kitchen machine outlive the culture that created it? The answer starts with one Swedish engineer and a philosophy no one would fund today. In the workshops of early 20th century Chicago, precision was not a luxury. It was a creed. The Chicago Flexible Shaft Company, known for machines tough enough to shear sheep and clip horses, built its reputation on overbuilt parts and motors that could run for decades. This was a world where a tool's worth was measured by the years it could outlast its owner. Into this world stepped Ivar Jepson, a Swedish immigrant who arrived in Chicago in 1925 with a head full of mechanical ideas and a restless fascination for moving parts. He was not a salesman or designer in the modern sense. He was an engineer who believed that if something could be made better, stronger, or simpler, it should be, even if no one asked for it. Jepson's early life was shaped by the practical demands of a farm in Kristianstad, Sweden, where the line between necessity and invention blurred every day. By the time he settled on Chicago's North Side, he had studied engineering in Sweden and Berlin. But it was in the American factory that his philosophy took root. At Sunbeam, then still called Chicago Flexible Shaft, Jepson moved quickly from draftsman to chief engineer. Promoted at just 29 in the depths of the Depression, he brought with him a conviction that appliances should be as reliable as the industrial equipment he had grown up fixing. He filed more than 600 patents over his career, each one a small act of faith in durability. The Mixmaster, introduced in 1930, was his most famous creation, not because it was flashy, but because it worked year after year with a kind of mechanical humility. Jepson's machines did not chase trends. They were designed for a domestic world that expected permanence, not replacement. The result was a mixer that could become a wedding gift, an inheritance, or a quiet companion across generations. Physical proof that sometimes the soul of a machine is forged on the shop floor, not in the showroom. In December 1930, the Sunbeam Mixmaster arrived in American kitchens, not as a luxury, but as a promise. The Model 5, with its gleaming chrome curves and streamlined silhouette, looked less like a tool and more like a piece of the future. George Scharfenberg's design gave it a quiet confidence on the countertop, with a painted metal body, bakelite dials, and a set of detachable interlocking beaters that could be removed and cleaned in seconds. The bowl spun on its own axis, powered by a motor tuned for steady torque, not just raw speed. This was not just engineering for the sake of function. It was a kind of domestic sculpture, built to stay. But the Mixmaster did more than mix. By the late 1930s, it had become a platform for an entire ecosystem of attachments. A juicer, a meat grinder, a slicer, a can opener, even a knife sharpener. Each accessory snapped onto the same base, turning the mixer into a proto-food processor decades before that idea had a name. Manuals promised that one machine could help bake bread, whip cream, grind sausage, and polish silver. The countertop became a stage for small acts of self-reliance, all powered by the same humming motor. The Mixmaster's endurance was not just mechanical. It became a wedding gift, an object you could inherit, a fixture that outlasted marriages and outlived the hands that first unboxed it. In the ritual of baking a birthday cake or beating egg whites for a holiday pie, the machine threaded itself into the fabric of family memory. The question lingers, if the Mixmaster still works, what exactly did we lose when the world that built it faded away? In 1942, the familiar hum of the Mixmaster faded from Sunbeam's Chicago factory floors. War had changed the rules. By federal order, the company halted civilian production almost overnight, trading beaters and bowls for the precise metalwork of aircraft starter motors and military signaling gear. The same hands that once assembled wedding gifts now turned out parts for bombers and field radios. Their skills redirected but not forgotten. For nearly 4 years, the Mixmaster vanished from American kitchens, its place on the countertop left empty, its future uncertain. Yet the machinery never truly stopped. The company's roots in industrial equipment, from sheep shears and horse clippers to motors built to last, meant Sunbeam could adapt, survive, and even thrive under the pressures of war production. This stress test did not break the Mixmaster's lineage. It proved its resilience. When the war ended, the nation's appetite for normalcy returned with a vengeance. In 1946, the company shed its old name, Chicago Flexible Shaft, and emerged as Sunbeam Corporation, a new identity forged in the crucible of wartime necessity. The Mixmaster returned to the assembly lines, now carrying not just the weight of flour and eggs, but the hopes of a country eager to rebuild domestic rituals. The pause had not erased the machine's place in the home. Instead, it set the stage for the Mixmaster to become more than a kitchen tool, a symbol of endurance in a world that had learned how quickly everything could change. In Australia, the Sunbeam Mixmaster took on a second life, one that would leave its mark on kitchens from Perth to Sydney. In 1948, as the country shook off the shortages of war, the first Australian-made Mixmasters rolled out of a Sydney factory. This wasn't just another import or a badge from abroad. For many households, it was the first small electrical appliance ever made local. The promise was simple: a machine that could do the heavy lifting of baking day after day without complaint. The Mixmaster quickly became more than a gadget. It was a fixture on wedding gift lists, a sign that a new household was truly starting. By the end of its first decade in Australia, Sunbeam claimed over 725,000 units had found their way into homes, a number that speaks less to marketing than to a kind of quiet faith in the machine's staying power. Families baked birthday cakes, beat meringues, and mixed dough for Sunday lunches, all with the same humming motor. In some houses, the same model worked for 50 years or more, outlasting marriages, renovations, and even the companies that made them. On the surface, it looked like progress, a global brand, local jobs, and a kitchen revolution. But beneath the chrome and glass, the Mixmaster's spread hinted at something deeper, a belief that an object, if built right, could anchor a way of life. What happens when the mixer outlasts the rituals it once served? The answer lingers in the silence of kitchens, where the machine still works, but the world around it has moved on. By the late 1970s, the kitchen was shrinking. Suburban homes, once built around sprawling family meals, now came with compact counters and smaller cupboards. The Mixmaster, once a permanent fixture, had to adapt. Sunbeam released the Mixmaster Jr., a scaled-down answer to the new realities of American life. Its patent language spoke directly to limited space and portability, a quiet admission that the era of countertop monuments was fading. But the changes ran deeper than design. In December 1981, after nearly a century in Chicago, Sunbeam was sold to Allegheny International. The deal ended not just local ownership, but a manufacturing lineage that stretched back to sheep shears and horse clippers. Within months, the company shuttered its Roosevelt Road plant, the same factory where Ivar Jepson's vision had taken shape. The machines that once promised permanence now faced a world that measured value in quarters, not decades. What does it mean when a tool outlasts the workshop that built it? The Mixmaster kept running, but the culture that once gave it purpose was already slipping away. By the dawn of the new millennium, the Sunbeam Mixmaster sat in a strange limbo, still spinning in family kitchens, still showing up at estate sales and thrift stores, but now as a memory object more than a living ritual. Sunbeam itself had become something else entirely. In a last-ditch effort to conjure lost glory, the company leaned into retro styling, marketing Heritage Series mixers with chrome curves and pastel colors designed to echo the 1930s and 1950s, lined up in catalogs as if nostalgia alone could patch over what was gone. But the old Chicago plant was long closed, the engineers and union workers scattered, the patents and machinery sold off or left behind. In February 2001, Sunbeam filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, crippled by debt and years of hollow leadership. The Mixmaster, once a symbol of permanence, now survived mostly through brand licensing and outsourced production, its soul reduced to a logo stamped on plastic, its original promise lost in the shuffle of corporate paperwork. And yet, in kitchens across America and Australia, vintage Mixmasters kept working, their motors humming quietly as if nothing had changed. The paradox lingers. When the machine outlasts the company that built it, what exactly is left? Is it just the mixer, or is it a kind of evidence, proof that something essential about how we once made things and how we once lived has slipped away, leaving only the relic behind? A machine launched in 1930, built to outlast trends, still hums in kitchens where the rituals are gone. The Mixmaster endured, 725,000 sold in 10 years, even as Sunbeam shuttered Chicago in 1981 and filed bankruptcy in 2001. If the mixer survives, what exactly have we lost?